there are plenty of chairs at the front. I won't bite, I promise, if y'all want to sit down. Wow, what a great crowd tonight. I appreciate you taking time out of your Monday evening. I'm Melissa Daly. I'm Executive Director of Downtown Amarillo, Inc. This is a really exciting time to talk about downtown and the future of downtown. Hopefully everybody got a chance to sign in. We want to make sure that we get your information so we can continue to provide you information about upcoming events and meetings and so forth. If you walked in, when you walked in, you probably saw sign up to speak cards. We'll be giving a presentation tonight about what's happening downtown, and want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. So there are sign up to speak cards. You've probably seen these at City Hall if you've ever spoken there. And then we also have comment cards that you can just leave with us if you have a comment or question, and we'll get back with you on that. Tonight we have an exciting presentation for you on the Civic Center area redevelopment. Many of you may have been at the meetings starting in around 2006, 2007 on the Downtown Strategic Plan, when the community came up with a strategic plan to redevelop downtown. What you're going to see tonight is a continuation of the work in looking at how we redevelop downtown, a plan for the 50-block area surrounding the Civic Center, which we've been working on for some time. About a year and a half ago, I met Joe Esch and Dave Wallace with Wallace Bajali in Waco, and looking at their project there. And we met with a number of developers, and it was so clear that these guys knew and understood urban redevelopment. They understood how to bring a variety of funding sources to the table, which you will see tonight, and how to create that synergy and capitalize on a catalyst project like what you will see this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Esch with Wallace Bajali, who's going to give a presentation on the Civic Center area redevelopment. And following that presentation, there's a microphone here, and we'll take your questions or comments. And there's a lot of people here, so it may be that, and we can see how it goes, that we can hear your question at your seat, so you don't have to climb over everybody. And we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Good evening. This is a wonderful turnout. In fact, I think this is the largest turnout we've had at any of the meetings. The second would have been on June 25th at the other end of this building, actually, when we talked about some of the progress. Thank you for coming this evening. Tonight I'm here to represent Wallace Bajali Development Partners to talk to you about the project, give you an update. As many of you may recall, this is a process that we began more formally in February with our firm in looking at the evaluation of some of the opportunities for the downtown revitalization area effort. As a part of that, we worked on a couple of specific projects, being a hotel and convention center hotel, as well as structured parking and a multi-purpose event venue. I'm starting ahead of myself. What we're going to do today, this is a presentation, it's the same presentation that was made to the local government corporation last Wednesday. One of the charges that we have had, you'll hear us say this over and over again, and one of the things that we believe in is making sure that there's an opportunity to reach out to the public, to make sure that there's communication that's going both ways. There's an opportunity on numerous occasions to update individuals on what's going on, to get their input, to provide answers to their questions, so that at the end, as you're moving forward to make recommendations, there's not a person that can say, I didn't know anything about it, that I didn't have an opportunity, that these things have been moving forward very quickly. Tonight we're going to go through basically a review of the project, some of the things I started on a minute or so ago. We'll talk about the base philosophy and approach. What were the premises that we started with and how we're going to approach this project? The process that went through, the summary of the conclusions, where we are today as we're looking to make recommendations to the city. The vision, talk about how those conclusions turn into, as you can see some of the renderings that are back in the left-hand side of the meeting room. Talk about the funding gap. If you were to approach this project from a totally private side and you looked at typical funding sources, what that gap had been if you looked only at property taxes as a source. Then we looked at proposed funding and sources and uses and tools that we had given a briefing in June to the city and said, here are the world of opportunities that are out there, and here's the things we might consider. Provide you an insight into the preliminary project budget, the economic impact, and then the recommendations. To the right is the picture. You'll see a larger element back there on the screen, or back there on the stand, that shows you the land plan. It's a land plan that was built upon the work that was done through the strategic plan and further done by Downtown Amarillo Inc. in a number of public meetings. To say, how is it that we can take this project and build around the synergies of the things that already exist to locate the projects, the hotel and MPEV, and parking structures so they make the most sense. Because in February of this year, we signed a development agreement with the city and said by August of this year, mid-August, we need to be in a position to make recommendations. We need to take a look at a downtown full-service hotel that's 300 rooms, approximately 22,000 square feet of meeting space. It needs to have a full service. One of the things that we're recommending is the Wyndham brand. Wyndham, as you'll hear tomorrow from one of the senior vice presidents, is the largest hotelier in the world of all products that they manage and own and have franchises for. We're looking at 1,250 space parking garages across 2 multi-story facilities. And then we also looked at the opportunity to have a multi-purpose event venue that could house minor league baseball and other events. The base philosophy. When we worked with the city said, our goal, your goal should be that there should be no increase in property taxes to fund this development. We recognize the studies that the Hunden report had done on the hotel recognized that there was a funding gap, that the city, for the project to move forward, would need to participate in some way. But we don't want you to consider property taxes as a source of funds. We also took a look and said both sides outside that need to be open in how they approach the projects. We need to take a look at, there are no sacred cows. How are we going to move forward with this, and what's from our side as the private side and from the public side, should we be open to new ideas? We need to take a look at creating new streams of revenue through the tools and programs that are out there that can capture the activity that's in the area to help fund it. You use it, you pay for it. That way, that the people that are participating in this downtown revitalization area are the folks that are driving the funding tools to be able to fund the development. And it was very clear, and I'm kind of barbells here, as you look at, there's no increase in property taxes, but neither did the city want to be in the position of being an operator. That's not what the city does, is operate multi-purpose event venues. It's not what the city does to operate hotels. Our approach, pure and simple, to start with, is there a market opportunity? Is there a business proposition? Does it make sense? What will you drive from a business perspective into this project to make it a success? A public-private partnership will not make a bad project a good project, but it can make a good project possible. And that, to be a good project, has to be based on a sound business premise. We need to be an open and transparent project, or process, as I hope tonight is an example of that. We have had numerous public meetings since February. This being the largest, but we've met with people individually, we've met with small group meetings, we've made presentations to a variety of groups. We've had a number of things to reach out to community meetings, presentations to the City Commission, other groups and things like that. We need to maximize the funding from the private side, from the equity and debt to repay, generate revenue streams to make sure we can pay things back. We need to minimize the amount of public participation. I'm not here to tell you that public-private partnerships don't exist where the public spends more than it should. But I am here to tell you that a good public-private partnership seeks to minimize the investment of the public and maximize the investment from the private sector to make sure that you have a project that's successful and protects the community's interest overall. We need to look at the opportunity to take advantage of the public-private funding models that are out there and minimize the resources of credit support that exists from the city. This is a process that we've had on many of our presentations, and it kind of makes your eyes glaze over. But it's a series of steps, the major steps that we have gone through throughout this effort. And if you'll see the first little balloon about the middle of the second line that says February 15th of 2011, that's where we started with our formal agreement with the city. And then the one that's down on the bottom row, second from the right, shows where we are today. What's also important about this, and what I would call your attention to, are those stars. Those stars represent the opportunities to have a public discussion, public presentation, information that was open to where it's available for the public to learn about the project. There's been a lot of dialogue, a lot of articles, a lot of public meetings. At the end, from the market assessments that were done through independent third parties, the due diligence that we did in bringing on the operators, and we went through a series of processes. For example, we identified an operator for the MPEV and an operator for the hotel. We went through a selection process that solicited interests and then interviewed those with a team from the city and downtown Amarillo to select those folks. And they helped put together the projections, the pro forma, that also were vetted by third-party consultants to ensure that there was a premise. At the end of the day, that it could be supported. We're recommending moving forward with phase one, with the hotel, the MPEV, and the parking structure. One parking structure at this time. One parking structure, about 750 spaces. We also identified that if we were to proceed only in private debt and equity, and did not use many of the economic development tools that exist that we could draw upon, that the gap to be able to fund that development would be over $80 million. That's what the city would need to bring to the table through just a traditional source of funding if we didn't bring some of the programs that we've had in this presentation. The projects will deliver. We also determined that even with that, there will be a return on investment to both the private sector and the public sector in excess of their investment. We minimize the risks to both sides, and in moving forward with this, phase one projects can be funded. One of the important points here today is we were able to create a funding strategy that will not rely upon property taxes to proceed with phase one for these projects. That's very important. We also, our conclusions are the importance is not to stop here, but we recommend we will be recommending that phase two, some of the efforts, this building right now, the city engaged a consultant a number of months ago to start looking at the facilities assessment for the Civic Center and how it should be developed long-term to make sure that it maintains the opportunity to attract business for itself. We realized that should be a phase two rather than a phase one, because one of the things was that you're losing business because you don't have a downtown full-service hotel. And if we would proceed with a rehabilitation of this facility, you still wouldn't have a downtown hotel. So it needs to be a phase two project, and we're recommending proceeding with that effort as well. Rendering, when we took a look at the planning and said, what would it look like? This is a picture of what is envisioned. So this is City Hall. This is the Civic Center. The Globe News Center is located here. The hotel, structured parking, and the MPEV. And the other slide. Goes to the machine. I'm not checked out on this equipment. This is the second structured parking, the one that we would anticipate would be phase two. Would help support activities at the Civic Center as it also developed. One of the importance, and I did mention this earlier, but you'll hear about it a little later. When we started this process, we had the opportunity to consider the location for the hotel and the multi-purpose event venue. We assessed, and we brought in consultants as a part of the team to assess the Herring Hotel as an opportunity for that structure. And we believe that the Herring is a fine property. It has significant historic significance, and it's a good structure. The difficulty we ran into from a success standpoint was one of land planning. If you want this to be a success long term, you need to build synergies around themselves. And the difficulty was the best location for the MPEV is located here. And if you had the Herring, the distance, you can't create the synergies across this area. So we recognized that the best location was to group these things together to take advantage of bringing people in one area, and then look at corridors for as the expansion potentially or rehabilitation of this facility along 4th Street could happen, and take advantage of the Herring Hotel in the future phase. This is a view, let me back up. If you're looking from the hotel back down this direction, that's the view that you see of the MPEV, and if you're looking back at the hotel from this direction from the MPEV, that's the view that you'll see from these next two renderings. What it might look like as the property gets developed. You can see here in the foreground where the city fountain is presently and builds upon that plaza, and it continues along the walkability, continues along the place that people want to be. A view of the hotel. One of the things that you might note is this is where 6th Street is located. One of the things that we're exploring, though there's been no final decision, but something that we believe strongly in, is the ability to close 6th from vehicular traffic, but keep it open for pedestrian traffic. To keep a corridor that allows you to have people to congregate and have a tie to the retail to be on the ground floor of the parking structure, as well as to create an area that opens up and invites people into the development. This is something that still needs to be worked through ultimately with the final traffic assessments, and ultimately will require the approval of the city, but is in our project and is in our project budget at this point. I mentioned the gap. We took a look at the budget numbers for the project, and if you built them, you were looking at approximately $108 million outside financing costs. And here are some of the assumptions that go along with it. Took a look at what you could attract from a private financing standpoint based off of the projected revenues. And then the gap that comes off of those properties is here. The total of that is a little over $80 million. This is not a recommendation, this is only for comparison to say that if you translate that only into property taxes, you pay for it with property taxes, you would see over a 5-cent increase. So the funding structure that we have come up with for this project funds the development, does not require a 5-cent tax increase, does not require any tax increase. The funding tools, in June I made a presentation to the City Commission as well as to the Local Government Corporation. Talked to them about the different funding sources that could be considered. From that, at that time, actually, we said, you know, there has been no determination as to which ones of these we might tap, but recognizing they're out there. The next 4 slides kind of run through the various funding tools that we have relied upon to develop this project funding structure. Private debt and equity, we're also looking at rent to be paid. And if you're looking at rent to be paid, let me explain that. In driving down the costs of the projects, we recognize that from an ownership standpoint, the private sector can fund these, own the lease to the property, and be delivered for ownership by the city, where the private sector has the responsibility for maintenance and operations and funding. The city cannot be foreclosed upon, but part of the repayment of that comes through rent and ticket fees and other portions of naming rights and things like that from the operations. The savings that it creates is in a couple different areas. First off, if it's owned publicly, it saves the sales tax. When you pay sales tax on construction materials, it's at the total rate of about 8.25%. The city collects about 2 cents, or 2 cents of that. The state collects 6.25. So by moving it to from private sector ownership to public sector ownership, you save over $4.1 million in project costs. You also save in ongoing operations, because rather than funding the operations and some of the property taxes in the short term, you're funding that can go to help fund and repay for the project. Federal funding programs, there are 2 that we rely upon, and by federal program, they're not funding, is that the federal government is not providing a source of revenue, but they've created a program that we can tap into. There are 2 that we're tapping into. One is EB-5, the other is new market tax credits. As we've described previously, EB-5 is a program where the federal government issues a number of visas per year. They reserve a specific portion of those number of visas to go to EB-5. The EB-5 then goes out, and through registered development groups, they attract capital for people who have an interest in locating in the United States through a program. They have to go through the same thing that you have to go through for a normal visa, plus their capital also has to be vetted. It's $500,000 per individual, that actually their spouse, and unmarried children under 21. And so it creates a source of capital that is invested in. Those funds have to be at risk. It becomes a private sector loan to this program, but it's created through the program, it's created through the federal government. The other one's new market tax credits. These are tax credits where essentially what happens is, if you get an allocation of a certain amount of tax credits, like say $10 million, for example, then what happens is a portion of that, you get a benefit less than that $10 million, because someone who's buying them, they get a benefit. They say, I'll give you $6 million for your $10 million of tax credits. Great. That's $6 million that comes in the project in the form of equity that's forgiven over a 7-year period. And in doing so, that creates value for the project and for the individuals. Those are both federal programs which are presently staffed. There's state funding tools. The state has a provision that allows for full-service hotels, convention hotels that are built within 1,000 feet of a civic center to participate and receive a rebate of the state's portion of the hotel occupancy tax. It says 7%, actually the state's portion is 6%, that's the city's is 7%. It also allows you to capture the sales tax off of that hotel. So this is only off of the new hotel. It doesn't take into consideration the other 50 to 60 hotels that are in Amarillo, but we can, through this effort, capture the state's portion off of the new hotel as a funding source for the development. Local funding tools. We're looking at opportunities. In fact, one of the organizations which has been in existence for 20 plus years, Beth's here, I saw her, they have generated funds. They have about $500,000 so far that they have pledged for other projects. They have generously recognized the benefit this opportunity could bring to the community, and they have indicated they would provide $400,000 of funding for this project with the ability to raise potentially another $100,000 by 2013. Hotel occupancy tax, the existing, there's two portions of that. Right now, if you stay in the city of Amarillo, as we do when we come to visit, you pay a hotel occupancy tax. 7% of that goes to the city. In the legislative session of 2009, legislation was passed by the city of Amarillo that allowed the city, as long as they own the land underneath where the new full-service hotel will be located at, to rebate that portion of the city's hotel occupancy tax to that project. And I break these two out because for the new hotel, you are not capturing hotel occupancy tax from the existing hotels to fund that. You're only capturing off of that project to be able to fund that development. It would be used for the new hotel. Now, there are other citywide hotel occupancy tax that exists. Could be used as a source of revenue for the multipurpose event venue and the parking. That does exist. It continues to grow, and we have been working with the city on how those dollars could be applied to both the parking and the MPED. Sales tax rebates. A portion of the sales tax generated from the hotel, again, revenue that's captured. If you go there, you pay it. It creates a new source of revenue to help fund for the cost of that hotel. Special event parking revenue. Looking at, there's some been working with Sherman and folks here at the Civic Center on some of the special events that happen at the Globe News, that happen here, that will happen at the ballpark. Will allow, the MPED will allow you to capture special event parking off of that. So there's not an overall parking fee, but only on some specific events. Tax increment reinvestment zone. That exists in downtown Amarillo. We're looking, and there has not been a formal decision by the board of the TERS, but this is the proposal at this point, and we will be back in front of that board on Thursday of this week. To utilize their revenue streams, they have some existing funds as well as the ability to issue debt to help fund streetscape and potential infrastructure. Ticket fee. We're looking at ticket fees for the MPEV of 10%, as well as for the Globe News and the Civic Center for ticketed events. And then working with the city, looking at the opportunity for those non-ticketed events. There has not been an increase in rents here in the Civic Center for the better part of 7 to 8 years, maybe almost a decade. To increase over the next 2 years, 20% and 20% increase 2 years in a row to generate fees for the MPEV and the parking. What that breaks down to, and this is difficult in even this market, this room to see, is you have the 3 different projects lined here. Total project budget, you have the ownership of the asset, they're owned publicly, they're leased to the private side for development. The hotel ends up being completely funded privately. Part of the source of repayment of that is from revenues that are generated off of its operation through public sources. You have the parking and the MPEV that have bonds that are issued, revenue bonds. Do not rely on property taxes, they're not GOs or COs, but they're repaid through a series of different funding sources, including some of the equity. What we have the opportunity to do here with the hotel is generate enough revenue and loan capacity to make a contribution of $2.4 million approximately to the parking structure, and then also allows for a $360,000 a year lease payment for the parking. On top of that, you have the operator lease and sharing of naming rights for the MPEV, and then ticket fees, hot tax, a pledge of the citywide hot tax, and then also any additional funds that can be generated here that can flow down to to the impact. I can't even read that from here.
This is broken up into several sections. Your hard construction costs at the top, then the soft costs that get into the architectural fees, the management fees, and so on and so forth. Then you get into the financing costs that are related to the project, infrastructure costs, and then other costs to the project.
We wanted to make sure, even though this is a project where we were responsible only for those elements not including infrastructure, that this is a public-private partnership. And so the entire project had to work from a funding standpoint. We worked with the city and we worked with some of the folks who are actually here in this room to come up with budgets that reflected what market forces were, to reflect what we believe we can build the facilities for, and then make sure that all the costs were accounted for so you didn't have uh-oh. You want to make sure that you have a budget that as you move forward, that you haven't forgotten about anything. That there's a contingency that's adequate because something will happen in every project. It never fails. And how do you make sure that you can fund that in the event that there are changes that need to be made? Economic impact. One of the things we did, we said, okay, you may recall when we first presented the city, we said, our belief is that for the city to participate in funding this project, the city should receive a benefit that you can quantify that exceeds the cost of their participation. We looked at two different sources to estimate that. Convention Sports and Leisure out of Dallas, and Dallas and Minneapolis are their two offices, is the leading entity that does sports and venue studies across the country. In fact, they actually do some of the work for the Yankees, their ticketing and things like that. They did the impact assessment for the, for the MPEV. The Hunden study, which was originally done by the city a couple of years ago, estimated an impact, and then we also worked with the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation and their model, which is Impact Data Source, to estimate the impact of the hotel on the community. And what we found is, based on the number of jobs, estimated wages from the pro forma, all the different costs that went into it, and all the different revenue streams of people coming to the community on conservative room rates with conservative spending, what would the economic impact? And over a 10-year period, it was estimated to impact the community by over $112 million. The net present value of that at a 5% discount rate is almost $98 million. 640 jobs with 220 construction jobs were estimated for that project. The MPEV generates over a 30-year period, because that's the time horizon that has typically done by CSL, it's $196 million. Its present impact, discounted to present value, if you built it and you got it today, is $88 million, with 76 jobs and another 120 for construction, 180 for construction, excuse me. Put that in perspective. If you had to rely upon the hotel, for example, and you were looking at the MPEV of about $30 million and the hotel of about $68 million, just the impact from the hotel alone justifies the project moving forward from a return on investment standpoint. So our recommendations are to proceed with this project. One of the things that I would tell you is that what are we recommending in proceeding? To the next step. This is not the last public meeting. This is the last public meeting tonight. There's going to be more public meetings. You have to, if the city decides to move forward, there's a significant number of things that have to occur. You have to document this effort moving forward in binding agreements. You have to make sure that there's public input through that process. Through the design process, if you have a public-private partnership, you have the input of the public going forward in design. So we're recommending moving forward to that next step, which is to continue to evaluate the feasibility of this effort going forward. We're recommending the creation of formal project agreements and initiate the design process to take what we have as very conceptual design and move forward to the next step. We're looking forward with a community process for phase 2. We think now is the time to continue that effort as what's already going on with the development of the Civic Center facilities assessment, to continue that to look toward other opportunities. We're also looking as a part of that to consider how the herring could be acquired. We're not laying it at the city's feet, we're not laying it at the private sector's feet. But we believe that acquiring the herring, its location, and preserving it for the heritage of this community and for the projects going forward is important. From put my public hat back on from the over a decade I spent with the city of Sugar Land, one of the great, this is a property rights state in the state of Texas. People who own property get to do what they want. And Mr. Goodrich is a wonderful man and wants to see things go forward with that property, and we would like to see that achieved as a hotel long term. But let's say he sells it the next few years to someone else who does not share that vision, and yet it's a community vision to see that develop to something, or that person wants to tear it down. So we believe that finding a way to acquire the herring is important for us to consider, and we're recommending that be done. We also would like to see the opportunity to create a public improvement district downtown or some other vehicle to assist in managing some of the other events downtown, some of the safety issues that are perceived in the area. How do we address these things coordination long term? So with that, I will thank you for your kind attention and open it up to questions. Am I missing?
We've got such a great crowd tonight. I'd like to see if we can keep the comments to 3 minutes or less, so that everybody has an opportunity to speak, and we're not here till midnight. But definitely want to hear from you, want to hear your comments and questions. So, John, where's John? John Jenkins? Okay, if somebody back there can grab those comment cards. Oh, Beth, have you got both the comment cards and the speaker cards? Okay. If you need a comment card or speaker card, if you could raise your hand and we'll get one to you. So do we have any first speaker cards? Okay, why don't we try it from your seats, unless you're kind of on the end and want to come up so you don't have to climb over your neighbors. Jody Manor.
I saw in a newspaper article where you mentioned the $42.5 million of the sources from the EB5, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the city going to provide a list of those sources of the $42.5 million? Who the actual donors are?
The $42.5 million is from EB5. The EB5 is done through Civitas. They're the folks who go out and secure the investments for the EB5 program. That goes through the immigration department, and then that goes through both their funding and the other. It's a private loan between ourselves and Civitas. The city does not have access to that information. I don't know that information is ever made public in any of the deals.
Okay, so we don't know whether that might be a...
We don't know, you wouldn't know, nor would you necessarily know if it was Amarillo National Bank or Wells Fargo or someone else providing a private loan. The information, the funds that come through the EB5 program are vetted to make sure that they meet the state departments, and they go through like 30 different departments. The source of funds are qualified so that they're not bringing in revenues that the United States would not want to invest in the community. I thought that was me for a second.
Okay, Amy Taylor Restine, if you wouldn't mind coming to us and turn the end so we can hear your question.
Thank you. I just wanted to address some things. I've been a part of this process for about a year now. And the meetings, although that we've had many of them, there's a consensus process that's in place. And it appears to be predetermined. And oftentimes we've made comments, and what we've noted is that they have not been recorded in the final say. And the opposition isn't given close attention. I wanted to look at the strategic action plan, which was written up by the city on page 9, and I want to talk more about the EB5 and about the immigration, and with that being a federal, that will be a federal program, not something that our local police will be able to monitor. And with the crime already, I would also like to know where the immigrants are coming from, and if they have any loyalty at all to the American system. Why we're bringing them here whenever we already have so much talent and business people here, why we aren't using our own.
Couple of questions there. First off, in every one of the meetings we've had where we recorded comments, they have been posted to the website, whether they were for it or against it. So I wouldn't agree with your assessment that the information has only been recorded one way. As to the EB-5, very good question. The EB-5 program is not about relocating immigrants to Amarillo. It is about a project which attracts funds for people who have an interest in relocating to the United States. Civitas, the average net worth of the individuals who invest $500,000 to participate in the program is $8.6 million. I don't see those people as coming to Amarillo to cause crime. In fact, we don't know that they're going to locate to Amarillo at all. Their funds are invested in EB-5 program, and that is what's coming to Amarillo. Once they have a visa, they locate a number of different locations wherever the United States they would like to go.
Well, and under that, they're supposed to hire 10 people as part of their agreement. Will those be local people, or will they be a person who holds a green card from around the United States?
The funds, another good question. The funds that are invested in EB-5 have a requirement of creating a number of jobs. That job is satisfied, the way that's calculated, actually it funnels into how much money your project can qualify for, and it's based on either direct or indirect. The direct investment, where an individual opens their business, and that certainly may be where you're bringing that question from, where I'm going to open a business and so I bring $500,000 and I have to hire 10 people, is different than when you have a Civitas, which brings together those dollars in more of a private placement. And they are looking at the indirect jobs that come off of the entire project. The individuals that would be hired in this project would be no different than the hotelier or the MPEV looking to hire people. There's no requirement to hire them from some foreign country as an immigrant. You're hiring the people who walk in the door like you do anywhere else. In the case of the hotel, you're looking to make sure that you have qualified managers, qualified food service people, qualified salespeople. They may be in this market, they may not be. Similar to the other jobs. You're looking to have the opportunity to create the position so they can be competed for locally.
Okay, thank you. Joseph Hayes.
Okay, first of all, I want to say that all this really looks great. Downtown revitalization, the stadium, everything looks really cool. What about water? I mean, I'm sorry, but we've got the mayor on TV telling us to wash our clothes by hand. And you guys are building Wally Bajolly Wonderland. We are in the middle of the country's worst recession and in the middle of a drought. We are concerned for good reason. Now, you guys are really good at making things complicated for us, but we are not stupid. And we're not blind either. So, the question was, what are we going to do in 2 generations when there is no water left in this town and this is the world's greatest ghost town? Thank you.
You're right. Let's move out now.
All right.
One of the things that we're looking at for the ballpark is addressing your question for 2 reasons. One, when you look at a multi-purpose event venue and you have natural turf, you have the issue of having to replace it. You have the issue if you have multiple events on it and people are there, it wears it down, it increases your maintenance costs. Not to mention the green aspects that you brought up, which are very good ones, is that how do you make sure that you preserve the water? So one of the things that we're looking at is the ability to put turf. The turf systems that exist today are much different than they were even 5 years ago. And by having a turf system as opposed to natural grass, it allows you the flexibility of doing a number of events in that location. I will tell you from experience in other communities, having been in North Dakota where we had too much water, to places where we don't have enough, you can find reasons to do nothing all the time. That's not the way this place was founded. And that's, I don't know what's going to happen in 20 or 30 years. But I do know there's people sitting around here that have those questions and are continuing to work on them. And I don't think, quite frankly, from my point of view, that you just stop because you've got a problem in front of you. I think you find solutions for it. Thank you.
Just to add to that, the images that you're seeing are conceptual images. One of the things, we don't know the details of the plantings and the things you'll see at the end of the day in terms of the greenery. What we do know is we want a pedestrian-oriented environment, but there's a way to have a balance. And when we created the design standards, we started with a list of about 20 plus trees. And that got narrowed down to the 4 or 5 trees that do well here, that are indigenous, if there's such thing as an indigenous tree in Amarillo. And so we are very cognizant of what will do well here in this dry, arid environment. And as we move forward, we welcome your thoughts as we get into the detail of that planning. Okay, Bill Summerford. And if you can just shout out your question if you think, if we can hear you. Thanks.
Thank you. My question is directed again towards the EB5 funding. $42.5 million out of $113 million is 35% or so. It's my understanding that whenever these green cards get issued, it's essentially buying your way to citizenship, the EB5 program. And I don't know if the vetting of the federal government, they didn't do a very good job vetting the terrorists that bombed us on 9/11. I just don't know if the vetting there is going to be sufficient to warrant the risk that America is going to be facing when these people are going to be coming in. Is that drug money? Is it oil money? What kind of money is it? We really don't know what kind of money it is. The other thing, once a person gets their green card, it's my understanding they're eligible to bring their wife and all their kids, and then they become eligible for our school systems and also SSI, Social Security, Medicare, which they haven't paid a penny into. So it creates some additional burdens upon the country, whether it's Amarillo or whether it's some other place in the United States. How do you address those issues, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Summer. First off, the number of visas is not being increased to cover the EB5 program. What the United States government is doing is saying we have a certain number of visas and we allocate a portion of those to the EB5 program. The processes that people have to go through to qualify for that visa are no different. You may go to the front of the line because you've contributed $500,000. And if you have an average net worth of over $8 million, I don't think you're going to be on the dole. I think you're going to be, those are the type of people who are creating wealth when they come to the community. You're absolutely correct in that if they participate in EB5, they have the opportunity to bring themselves, their spouse, and their unmarried children under 21 have the right to the same visa. Their funding sources, in addition to themselves, which the normal process goes through the individual. The EB5 program not only goes through the individual, it also goes through their funding sources. They have to show where the funds came from. They have to be documented. There's about 30 different agencies that are in that department, or excuse me, in the federal government that have to validate those funds before before those dollars can be brought forward. The process works, they have to contribute $500,000, that's locked up. Then they're vetted. It's not, well, as soon as we vet you, you put your $500,000. You put your $500,000 up front. Then it goes through the process. Once it's qualified, those dollars can be released to the project. You bring up, and I appreciate the passion with which you have for the country. We all do. No one wants to see our country ravaged. But I would tell you that if you have people that are investing $500,000 and their funding sources have been proven, and they have an average net worth that's significant, those are the type of people that I would rather have the visas. And the source of capital that I would rather see that comes to the project, so that we are not relying upon a tax rate. There's a real simple way to do this. We can go back and you can issue $80 million of debt. Would you rather that? I wouldn't. So what we've tried to do is be creative and use the programs that exist at the state, the federal, and the local level to fund a project so that Amarillo gets redeveloped and it doesn't impact your property taxes.
Is that wrong? I understood you previously to say that $500,000 was a federal loan. Does that mean the federal government has to pay back?
No, sir. No, sir. Very, very good. Thank you. It is a loan. What happens is that Civitas, who goes out and creates the private placement, they go out and they say, okay, we have an Amarillo fund, and we're going to attract investors to that Amarillo fund, the people who want the visas. They then enter into a loan document between Civitas and Wallace Bajali. Wallace Bajali is the one that's on the hook for that loan. Their funds, by federal regulation, are required to be at risk. So they can lose those funds, even though they're a loan. They could lose them if the loan wasn't repaid. The federal government is not backing them. There's no guarantee from the federal government. All the federal government did was set up a program that says, if you invest $500,000 under these circumstances and you qualify, these funds can be used for these types of projects. Thank you very much.
I think it's important to remember on the EB5, we're not proposing a new EB5 program. This is a program that exists. The funding is there, available to those who want to access it at a very low interest rate. Looking at an interest rate of 1% to 2%. That helps cover that gap for the hotel. If you remember that $80 million gap for these projects, the ability to access those funds at that rate is what helps cover the gap and helps us as local citizens not pay for that. So we're not creating this program. It's a program that exists that can be taken advantage of, starting in the early 90s. Lisa Brown.
You've already addressed part of the question, but I wanted to ask a little bit more about the water issue. And you've addressed the conservation side of water, but in the June 30th Globe News, city officials said that the main problem in Amarillo is not a lack of water, but the ability to move the volume. And they also said the age of some of the infrastructure was an issue. We all want to see Amarillo grow, and we all conserve water always. But shouldn't we undertake a rebuilding of Amarillo's water structure before we start a massive building project like this?
Thank you. The question that she asked was one related to water and some of the information that's been public about the age of some of the infrastructure and the ability to address the infrastructure projects. The funding sources, that really brings up a good point, ma'am. I really appreciate your question. The funding sources that have been identified here for these projects include some of the infrastructure to serve it, but they're for these projects, and there are limitations on these sources of funds. You're not going to get an EB5 loan to go do your water supply. You're not going to get $16 million of new market tax credits to go for the water supply. So this project does not prohibit the community from moving forward and addressing those other issues. Neither does it hinder them from doing that. So there is a difference, and I don't know if, Jared, if you had any other comments or things that one of your staff would have on the water, but from an infrastructure standpoint, I would tell you that this project has the funding sources to change the location of the infrastructure to serve it, and it doesn't prohibit the city from addressing it in other means. Thank you.
Okay, Roy McDowell.
just as a quick review, Amarillo is now in debt over $300 million. We've got this result in about the last 10 years. I think you're part of your thing that you want to do besides the EB5 or whatever it is. As of today, we have absolutely no applications at all for this money, if that's correct. Maybe it's too early for it. The new market tax credits that you've talked about, I don't think you talked about it. That's a federal project. That project runs out, the funding for all that runs out in 2011. There's been no money approved for next year, 2012. That's $16 million of this $80 million or less that you're proposing. Now, the ballpark, where it's at now out there, the loss this past year was $30,000. The loss on the Globe News Center across the way here was $300,000. And the Civic Center where we're at now is $1.6 million. Now this stuff has all got to be paid for. And some of the same tax that you're talking about taking from the motel is going to go to this ballpark now. So we're trying to find money, every source that we can, to get that in there. I've talked to people that go to the ball game out here. They say, generally speaking, there's 1,000 in attendance, probably 50 games a year. That'll hardly cover the expense, paying any principal, any interest, any upkeep on that stadium, running that stadium, which I talked to the man that owns the Sox here, and when we got down to it, he said he thinks the payment on the stadium plus the operating expense will be well over $2 million a year. Well, that money's got to come from somewhere. So I guess in all of this, I've got to cut it short. I've got a lot more. Our hockey team loses money, football team loses money, so all that's coming out of this part. Now, here's my question. If we expect the ball team to bring in revenue to help pay for this, and they lost $30,000 where they pay absolutely probably very little, if any, rent each year, and they lose money, how much money can we expect this ball team to contribute to the payment, the upkeep, the maintenance, and operation expense of just this one part alone?
Thank you, sir. Working in projections, first off, I agree with you. The ballpark that presently they're at, they can't service their constituents. They get above about 2,200 is what Scott had told us, and they start actually losing money just on being able to service them. There are limitations in the way that facility presently exists for them to be able to make money, and it creates a problem for them. In answer to your question on the amount of funds, it is programmed for $400,000 a year in rent and also in the sharing of the advertising. And that's to come out of the ballpark operator's pocket. And the projections that were put forward were not only done by independent third party, taking a look at the trends across the country, across Texas, and also in this location, the market statistics, but also the operator has taken a look at the marketplace and where they see things at and where they see it going in this type of structure, and they're comfortable moving forward. They operate teams in Grand Prairie and also at Shreveport.
Okay, David Odell.
I have a comment and question, I guess, about the increased fees for arts organization. I'm the general director of Amarillo Opera. And I've talked to a couple of the commissioners a bit. My concern is 20% use fee, an increase in our rent, 10% in ticket costs. I've only been here 2 years, but in that time we've reduced ticket prices in order to attract people to come downtown. Our concern, I think, as an arts community is that a 10% user fee on tickets will actually have a negative impact on bringing my audience downtown. 20% increase in rental fees, I'm a bit concerned about, and we're in the theater, we're in the Globe News Center, I think, about 5 weeks a year. For that time, I spent roughly about $20,000. an additional 20% in a budget that's already very, very tight. Opera companies, symphony orchestras all around the country are canceling performances, going out of business, going into bankruptcy. We're concerned that the money's not there in our budgets, in our nonprofit budgets. What will likely happen, from my perspective, is I'll keep the same budget, and I'm more likely to cut the number of days that I'm in the Globe News Center, which will open up dates in the Globe News Center. And historically, you know, I've been through these kinds of projects in Madison, Wisconsin, in Durham, North Carolina, where they built the stadium for the Bulls. You know, my concern is that we'll open up dates in the Globe News Center. The city will be forced to look for rock concerts and other things to bring in from outside of the community. It'll be sort of a spiraling effect. You guys may or may not be able to fill the available slots, but the Globe News Center then will be not what the Globe News Center I think was intended to be, as sort of a resident company house, basically. So additionally, I think all the arts organizations have concerns about parking 2 blocks away. You know, we are mainstream sort of arts organizations that deal with a population where the ticket buyers basically are, let's say, 50 years and older. You know, it's an upscale thing. $10 increase on my tickets, making elderly patrons walk 2 blocks, I think is a real concern for us. And I wanted to just get your comments. You know, I'll say at the same time that I'm all in favor of the downtown revitalization. I'm just really, really, really very concerned about the impact that it'll have on the viability of the arts in Amarillo.
Thank you, sir. First off, there is parking right next to the Globe News, and the parking is not 2 blocks, it would be 1 block. Not that that isn't an issue, but if we're going to work through the numbers, let's make sure that they're accurate. One of the things that you're talking about is something that every community wrestles with as they move forward in downtown revitalization. As you look at a civic center that has not had an increase in rates, or Globe News for that matter, in significant periods of time, people become accustomed to those things. You also have a downtown that has a limited number of attractions. And as you create an increased number of attractions, you create an opportunity for more people to come downtown. It actually changes your marketplace. I do not know, I can tell you, actually, I do know from experience that tomorrow will be different from today. Whether you do nothing or you do something, that the marketplace that you have at the Globe and the Civic Center, that the tastes will continue to change. And how do you prepare the community for the long term to be able to have the greatest flexibility? There's presently a significant portion of this population that is not served to the extent that it could be in this community from the Mexican Hispanic market. There are a number of events that you could hold in these locations to attract that portion of the population. How is it that we can create an environment where every citizen has an interest that can be fulfilled?
May I add?
Of course.
So Amarillo Opera, as a matter of fact, on Friday, will host what is arguably the most ambitious Latino Hispanic classical musical event in town. But we still lose our shirt on the event. We don't make money. And so, again, I just want to say that in a tight budget, it'll mean that I'm not in the theater for 14 days. It'll mean that I'm in the theater for 10 days. And you're not going to see increased revenue, I don't think, in the short term at least. I mean, perhaps 10 years from now, yes. But in the short term, you're most likely not going to see increased revenue from Amarillo Opera because we're burning up, you know, we're burning up our reserves in a tight economy to provide the level of service and increase the artistic product on a, you know, we're producing more for less money than we've ever produced.
Commissioner Perez.
You know, I come here again and I look at this beautiful pictures here, but I'm gonna tell you what I have seen. I've been in Waco. I didn't see the same thing that you see, like you see in Sugarland. Sugarland is supported by Houston. Waco is supported by the college people there. Fort Worth, they got people coming from all over Dallas and the others, millions of people. What's going to support Amarillo? I don't know. They can't even support this year the stocks. They're not even breaking even with the stocks. And all we're doing is spending. We haven't spending money. We're trying to fix the stadium. But we're in hope now because you came here and make a deal with the Sox, and we have to stop everything. Am I right? Okay. So here we are. We got a $2.5 million budget. I mean, short of the budget. We're going to have to balance it. We're going to need $2.5 million, and we're going to have. Hey, it's not me. I'm not going to vote for it. I'm not going to vote for the tax increase. The other one, they spend it, then they make their bed. They can sleep on it. I have been conservative with all this, but I cannot see the infrastructure in this town is going out to pieces, and they're trying to build somebody to impress here and to bring people here. Hey, they can go to Albuquerque. They can go here to Oklahoma and gamble. They can go to Lubbock. You know, that's how. What are you going to attract Amarillo with? What? There's nothing here in Amarillo. The civic center is falling on your. I say it because I'm in it. I'm in it. I'm ashamed to say that, but it's true. The civic center is falling on us. Every entertainment that comes to Amarillo goes to Lubbock because they have a big civic center and Amarillo don't have nothing. But no, we're going to build a ballpark and a big hotel, and I don't know what else we're going to build. And you know what they do? We're selling Amarillo like America's selling to the Chinese, and I hate that. I do not want to sell my country, and I want to sell Amarillo.
Commissioner, thank you. I've missed you. I will tell you that if the rest of this community had taken that approach before the Great Depression, you would not have Amarillo College. If this community had taken that approach and feared tomorrow rather than look for today, you would not have the courtyard, the courthouse.
Let me correct you in a second.
Let me finish, sir. I allowed
Amarillo
you.
College, we lost Texas Tech instead of Amarillo College.
You would not have Amarillo College. My point is, sir, whether you lost an air base after an election or you had a Great Depression, this community has always looked forward. That's, I think, the strength of this community, for the Civic Center and others, and we can disagree, and we're going to disagree, and I certainly appreciate the views that you express so adamantly, and they're to be respected, but I disagree with them, sir. And I appreciate you, and I've, they haven't changed. So what I'd like to do is say thank you, but we have a lot of other questions that we need to get to. And speaking of Amarillo College, Dr. Paul Matney. Great segue.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. And while I have understanding of my friend David Odell's dilemma, I stand here as a private citizen, a lifelong resident of Amarillo, in support of this plan. I want to commend the Amarillo City Commission for its vision and and also for its courage. A lot of folks have done a lot of heavy lifting to get us right here. I commend you for the many meetings that you've held. My fellow citizens, whether they support this or they're opposed to it, I appreciate their interest in being here. But I believe that so many of us that are lifelong residents have really enjoyed seeing downtown Amarillo come back. And I do remember when the airbase closed. And I think this is an opportunity for us to continue that positive movement in that direction. And I think this will improve the quality of life for our citizens and ensure the future of Amarillo for many generations to come. So I commend you, I commend the commission, and also setting up these organizations to vet this, the Amarillo Government Committee, and I know that you'll also be talking to the TERS Committee. So they're honorable people can disagree honorably, and I think we have honorable people here tonight disagreeing honorably. But again, as a lifelong citizen of Amarillo, I support the concept, and I want to thank everyone that's worked so hard to get us here. My question would be, can you run over quickly the timeline? If this is developed, when is the first spade of ground moved, and when is the project going to be complete? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you for your comments. Very quickly, the earliest that you could see ground turn would be in 2012. In the first quarter of 2012, you could start with some of the dirt work. The earliest that you could see the hotel open would be in September, fall of 2013. And the earliest that you could see the MPEV open would be spring of 2014. To do that, you have, it requires, you continue through this process, the design and all the different things to make sure that it goes down the road that has been anticipated. We have, what's great about this attendance is we have a lot of speakers and a lot of cards. So what we're going to do is make sure that we keep things short to keep moving and respect everyone. Robert Goodrich, please.
Thanks very much. It's great to attend these meetings. I love hearing all the perspectives that are shared. That's really invigorating. I'm a very simple man, and I don't have any great big power to understand all these finances that you're putting in front of us. It would be great if we had some sort of objective assessment of the finances, just so we'd be comfortable with what you're proposing. I think that would be in everyone's best interest. And I also, and I proposed this to Melissa, I think maybe even before you came on the scene, that if we're going to redevelop and revitalize our downtown, it would be great to start with buildings we already have rather than start building brand new from the get-go. Now, I'm selfish when I say that because I own the Herring Hotel. And I would love to see that building given rebirth. But here's some rationale, perhaps it would be helpful to you if you are willing and open to reconsider your plan, modify it just a little. Why not start small and just test the water a little bit? I think a lot of people do experiments, and we hear great things coming out of Amarillo College and Texas A&M and the Agricultural Research Station. My goodness, they're doing research all the time, and they're trying things out before they commit to full-blown programs. It just might be that we stand to gain a lot by revitalizing things we already have on hand. Let's make some polish on our existing community, and if we have good success with those polishing efforts, then we go forward and build these great big new plans, which I think are wonderful. They can't do anything but bless us, in my opinion. I'm as excited as can be about downtown revitalization. I love the idea, but I also think that in order to avoid, I've never heard this spoken before, and the man that said this is going to go down in history. The Wallace Pajoli Wonderland, what a fantastic idea. That's really an interesting idea. So I trust that you'd see merit in some of the ideas I'm proposing, and they'll be helpful. I don't want to harm anything. I like Paul Matney's idea about supporting those who've done some heavy lifting, and it's taken a lot of work to get here. But I think we could redirect some of the energy and do some things that really bless us in big ways. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich. Just wanted to say very quickly to the question about having an independent look at these numbers. The city has hired their independent firms to look at all of these numbers, to vet all these numbers, and the sources, and make sure that they do make sense. There's been a lot of eyes looking at this, a lot of third parties to make sure that they work. I wanted to say though, from the aspect of doing this larger project, one of the things that we knew when I came here is we had to have a catalyst project. It was key to the whole revitalization. If you don't have that catalyst project that has enough synergies, that brings enough people to one area, you don't get there. You don't get there a project at a time. And so we knew we had to have that. We knew these guys could do it. Importantly, we knew that they could come up with that creative funding source. How lucky are we to have this project that doesn't affect our ad valorem taxes? This is what we were looking for, and I think we're very fortunate to be where we are to have a catalyst project that won't affect our ad valorem taxes. Jimmy Press.
Ms. Goodrich, our charge with the city in our development agreement was to look at your hotel. Our charge was to make sure that as we proceed with a land planning effort, that it's something that made sense. We did that. And what we looked at is to make sure that we had a project that we believe would be successful. And honestly, sir, I don't believe that we would be able to accomplish our objectives if we move forward with the Heron. It is a beautiful property. It is a fine building. And it would be a wonderful opportunity. Unfortunately, it is not in the right location to take advantage of the investments the city has already made and would create what people fear, I believe, if you started there, which is not a success.
Yes, I'm Jimmy Presley Hammond. At one time, I was a truck driver for a cement truck. To make concrete, you gotta have cement, gravel, sand, and a lot of water. Have y'all figured out how many gallons of water y'all gonna need for this concrete, for this MVP? You been, that you're thinking of building?
It's not on the top of my head, but I'm sure that the contractors are all of that work that goes into planning will be worked through, I promise. Otherwise, we won't have any concrete.
Okay, another deal I have here, the area south of the MVP, and area Grant Street, Interstate 40, what would the noise level be during the ball games and during the concerts?
The systems are designed so as not to impact outside the area, where the way that you put speakers and the way that you organize it would not raise it to a level above the traffic noise that you hear on the highway.
Okay,
That's, for example, one of the things that we did in Sureland. We had the same concern. If you look at ballparks like, well, actually, in Sureland, you have a football stadium that's 0.3 of a mile from, it holds 11,000 people from the residential area. And it's 0.7 of a mile from Del Diamond to the residential community. This is a significant difference, a significant distance as well. And with the design process under anticipated, would not impact the communities from a sense of noise, from a lighting perspective, or crime or traffic.
Okay, guess that's all I have at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Alan Abraham, please.
What is Civitas?
Civitas is the investment banking firm. They actually manage the Dallas EB5 program. And they're the investment banking firm that manages EB5 programs in Dallas and also is doing a statewide EB5 program. So they would be, they're not a consultant for Wallace Bajali. They're an independent, there'd be like a banking firm that goes and secures. They represent the funds that are coming in, and our loan would be with Civitas. Kathy Altman, please.
I had several questions. The first one is, I don't think, to my mind anyway, that it's been adequately addressed, is the traffic We have a major highway going right through this area, and I know when I was at one of the meetings, the answer was, well, we'll just unsynchronize the lights so that the trucks would have to slow down every block or something. That didn't seem like a very adequate answer. So I would like to know, what you propose for that, since we have 287 going right through this area. The second, what's happened like at the Marriott? Is it a full-service hotel? The Ambassador, it's been like the host hotel for the symphony participants, the symphony guests and so on. Are they just gonna kind of be thrown over? I don't have any interest in that hotel, but that makes me wonder about that. Third, I'm not interested in our city participating in this EB5. It looks to me like it's a way to buy your way into this country, and that's discriminating against some of the other people that would like to come into our country. And the fourth is, what are your figures on the parking? I know right now, like when we go for the symphony, we can land park and it doesn't cost us anything, but what kind of fees do you anticipate will be added on for that?
I will do my best to answer all 4 questions if I can recall them. The parking or traffic issue that your question was based on, I don't recall anyone saying that they're going to change the timing. I can't comment one way or the other. The traffic, everywhere I've been, whether it's Minot, North Dakota, or Houston, Texas, has bad traffic. Everywhere I've been, whether it's downtown or, it's a matter of perspective. The reality is that the traffic signalization can be managed. The timing when you arrive at the MPEV or other events is not in a group. People trickle in, and the times at which they leave are not peak times for departure. So it's, from a traffic management standpoint, it is not an issue. Similarly with the hotel or the garage, how that's managed, the access points are not only on Buchanan. So be able to access and egress from the parking garage also has multiple points as anticipated. What are the questions? Right now, the first parking garage is anticipated to have 750 spaces, and the balance of that was anticipated for the second garage. The hotel, the Marriott, is what's called a select service. It is not full service. The Ambassador, one of the things that the city has lacked from is a downtown full-service hotel and ability to service this facility here. It's anticipated that this property, by bringing a full-service hotel downtown, creates additional events, and you could not fill every hotel room. Even if you filled every hotel room here, even if you had an event here, it would fill every hotel room and still be additional demand. So by having a hotel downtown, it takes the opportunity to bring additional events down into the Amarillo, which helps provide other benefits to the other hoteliers. It's not just where you're stealing from one to the other, it actually helps grow the market. What's the fourth question? Oh, EB5. The city's not participating in EB5. The EB5 is between the city, it's between Civitas and Wallace-Pajali. It is a loan between the city. Does not have an investment in, it is not signing loan documents with Civitas or on EB5. That's not related to EB5, it's not the city.
But that's semantics, isn't it? I mean, if you're participating in it, you're participating in it.
It's a private loan.
If it happens to be where we've been able to secure the capital to make this thing go forward, your options is you can go raise your taxes 5%. The other thing is, if we went to Wells Fargo, other banks. In this case, we've been able to find the financing through the EB5 program. A program that allows us to move forward without impacting your taxes.
About parking.
I addressed the parking.
And how much will it cost?
The parking is about $13 million for the parking structure.
No, I mean the cost per.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, you did ask that. It's not anticipated to charge for parking. That's the special events is only for special events, not for if you go as a general course, it's only if there's special events at the MPEB or the Globe of a specific nature that you, otherwise there's not it's not a charge to park. There's no, because frankly, there's too many other places that people could park. If you charge there for the, other than special event on a daily basis where the proximity, you wouldn't be able to, you get too much leakage, it wouldn't make sense.
But how much for those special events? What is your projection?
I think it's $3 to $5. Armin.
I hope you miss me too.
I do. I'm happy to see her. Since the election, I've been missing.
After the election, I didn't want to see any of you. I think the election was stolen, so I didn't want to say that, but that's what a lot of people are saying. My question is coming up, if you just give me a minute.
Who asked you to speak? Why did you?
Didn't you call my name?
She
called my name.
Well, we didn't hear that.
Well,
I did call her name, sir.
Okay.
Melissa called my name. And I have a right, as an American citizen, I have a right.
Ma'am, please, we have a lot of people who want to talk. Please, go ahead and give us your question, please.
Mr. O'Donnell from the Amarillo Opera, he's right. My husband was one of the board members that helped to build the performing arts, and his name's on the last beam, and I'm very proud of that. The Amarillo Opera has done a lot for this community, in the Black community, in the Hispanic community, in the Amarillo community. We shouldn't even have to have different Hispanic and Black and this and that. It should just be Amarillo community. They provide a great service. They bring the children for free to come and see the performances, and many senior citizens also. There's 130 opera companies around the United States, and Amarillo is sure lucky to have one of them. We do have a lot in Amarillo. We have the Amarillo Theater, we have Palo Duro Canyon that brings in a lot of tourists here to Amarillo as well as to Canyon. And Amarillo supports Canyon, Canyon supports Amarillo. And I'm very proud to be able to stand with Mr. O'Donnell and talk about the same fears he's got about if he's going to have to raise those prices, or small families and senior citizens still going to be able to come and enjoy those performances. My son has 4 children, and it was very hard for him to come to any events. You got to think a family of 6 going to any event costs a lot of money. Now you want to charge them for parking also. In this economy, the way it is right now, why do you think families are not going to the ballpark and doing things? It's hard enough. They want to put clothes on their children to go to school. They want to put meat and potatoes on the table. If you're going to be raising the prices, is all this that you're wanting just for the tourists? Or is it for the people that built Amarillo, that work in Amarillo, pay their taxes in Amarillo, and die in Amarillo? Do you know that Potter County pays for the indigent care of those that die? I spoke to some people from the cemetery. Potter County right now has to cremate people because there's not enough money to bury them. And there are people right now in boxes sitting on the shelf because there's no money to even do anything with those cremated. You gotta think about the heart of the people, not just what it's gonna do to your pocket, and bringing investors in, foreign investors. I'm not afraid of them coming here with so much with their visa and their opportunity. You know, what I'm worried about is that they're gonna have a voice in our government, and what our government is going to look like in the near future better worry us. Because those that are making the laws, and you have people from other countries being made eligible to go in front of our state legislature and our United States Congress, will change what our country is all about.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments, your passion. Out of respect for, if there's a question we need to get to.
She asked a question about the parking.
Yes.
When we went to Oklahoma City, we went in a restaurant and the parking for us to go into the restaurant was $5. When we came out of the restaurant, they were having a special event, the price had gone up to $10. Did you give her the right answer when you said, oh, to $3? And how much is it gonna be higher for the price of the ticket to go to that event and then pay for the parking? And maybe you wanna take your kids out to get something to eat afterwards. Are you gonna be able to afford it? No, you're gonna stay home. But you will have money in your pocket.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Again, actually it's $5 is what the projections show. I said 3 to 5, but actually it's $5. Karen Ellis, please.
Hi, this question has already been addressed by the commissioner and by another gentleman. It's just very simple, and I've read, a little bit about this and not as familiar, but why another baseball field in Amarillo? I don't understand it. First of all, let me qualify. I have 3 boys. We love baseball. We've been out to see the Dillas. We love the Sox. We support them. But the current field has had its ups and downs, and every year we wonder if we'll even have a team. I don't understand why a baseball field is such a focus for the downtown area. It is one season feature. What is it used for the rest of the year? Maintenance is required for the other 3 seasons. I don't believe in this situation, if you build it, they will come. Amarillo is not the size of Grand Prairie or Shreveport. Is it possible to have a beautiful landscape park, if the drought permits, to add a water feature later on? Several of the large churches are downtown, and I thought maybe a beautiful gazebo, a beautiful green space for people to have a view downtown. Weddings could be held there, concerts as well. Out-of-town guests could stay downtown. People that stay at the hotel and those that work downtown could take advantage of walking paths and just have a green space. In my humble opinion, a view of a park would be nicer to look at from restaurants, retail shops, and hotels can be enjoyed year-round, not just one season. Thanks.
Thank you. Very quickly, one of the differences is we're not looking at just a baseball stadium. It wasn't referred to as a baseball stadium. It has multiple purposes. As I talked about earlier, having turf rather than grass allows you to operate a number of different activities there. If you go to El Paso as another example, granted they're 800,000, but the point is that there are a variety of different other locations where stadiums have been designed to be multi-purpose event venues, where they've held events such as festivals, corporate events, boxing, things from concerts where you come out of the batter's eye wall with the ability to install concert staging. In the East Coast, you have done things where it's cold enough, they have done hockey. The point is that there are a variety of activities that can take place in a multi-purpose event venue. If you look at it only as a stadium, you will not hold those there. The current stadium, it is a ballpark with history, it's not a historic ballpark. It has significant limitations, and the commissioner and I would respectfully disagree on a number of those points.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Kenny, I'm gonna mess this up. Next.
That's close. Okay, I have a couple of questions. One is the parking, there's 750 parking spaces.
Sir.
How many, now city workers, like the mayor and stuff, will occupy those spaces every day? Like right now where that parking will be, probably 100 city trucks are parked there every day. So if those, out of the 750, 100 of those will go away every day. I mean, those cars, the trucks are there, on the weekends or whatever. Everybody that works in those buildings park right there, and that will be taken care of. That's my first question.
Okay.
My second question is, what's missing from that photo over there is our homeless problem in this town. Everybody who works down in the city, especially women, it's not very safe downtown. I work on 30th, and most of the women that work there want someone to walk them across the street for a parking place. The homeless the family situation here is very, very bad. Well, is there money in there to relocate the homeless shelters? We have 3 or 4 within a block, 2 blocks of everything that we want to revitalize. It's just, it has to be safe. I've been to other big places like Jacobsville and Cleveland, and they moved their homeless shelters because they realized if you're going to bring the visitors, especially in the comedian world and the text world, people will 140 characters will say, don't come here, you're gonna get panhandled, and it's a very big problem. Once you go past the railroad tracks towards where all the fast food restaurants are, which most people that are in town, if they wanna go to, a Kentucky Fried Chicken, they're gonna look at their GPS and they're gonna go that way. We get panhandled at every one of those places. I want my city to look better. I want my city to be safe. But that won't be if every visitor that comes here thinks that they're going to be, people are going to want money from them. Just the safety of every person in this town is important as long as you can bring more people in. You just got to make sure they're safe. And everybody says, well, the taxes won't go up, but we're going to have to add some police officers. Because the police officers, it takes 12 minutes for the police officer to come to your house now for a call. Now if he's dealing with a homeless call, then you can call him. That will raise the taxes. So I understand this ballpark, and I'm down with the ballpark. It's just that around here, our weather's kind of empty. Come November, at the end of October, there'll be nothing down there. You can't look ZZ Top down in the middle of the city. Unless you put a roof on it, and there's no money to put a roof on that structure. We are missing a large complex here like they do have Loving, which was voted down several years ago out there by the big Texans. So I do appreciate you want to bring a sports venue. And the hockey thing is an insult because that's one or two frozen games up there. They're never going to have hockey.
I didn't suggest that I provided examples.
You use that as an example.
I used it as an example to give you an example of some of the ways. The point was there was a variety of ways that they can't be addressed. Not that that's how it would be addressed here, and I apologize if I gave you that impression. First off, the 750 spaces is for the garage you see here, which is next to the hotel. The balance of approximately 500 spaces would be the garage next to City Hall. The process, you're absolutely right, that is where there is parking. It is a Urban Land Institute shared parking concept. There are uses during the day, and there are different uses from day to night, and that parking would be used differently in the evening than it would be during the day. During the day, when you have business hours, you have parking that not only meets the people who go to work at City Hall, but those who also go to City Hall. With respect to the other commentary on security, I walk everywhere down here. I've never felt unsafe. My point is that there is perception. I've also not been panhandled as you suggest. I've not even seen the folks. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, and I'm not trying to dispute that you're telling me that they do, because what I'm suggesting to you is that there are different perceptions. I also agree with you that you need to manage those perceptions, just as we did in Waco. When we worked downtown Waco, the perception was don't go downtown. You'll get robbed, you'll get shot, you'll get all those things, the same type of things that you're saying. And my point is the perception and reality are oftentimes two different things, but that doesn't mean that you don't address the perception. If you will notice that we all talked about a public improvement district. One of the purposes of the public improvement district is to help address with those issues with security and help address with the opportunities for how you police in that area. So I think you've made some wonderful points and things that we agree with you on, that you must manage the perception and you must deal with the reality. And I believe that there's ways to do that. Actually, we had to talk to you, but we have.
I mean, you say that you've been down there. I've worked down there for 3 years. I mean, you ask some people. I mean, it's the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about in my city. Not just your plan started. I appreciate what help I have. I'm talking about the actual safety of everything that wants to be built. You want to bring more people down.
I think we agree 100%. Safety is very important, and it's something that we've talked about. We've talked about it for quite a couple of years now in terms of some strategies and things that we need to do. Can we solve that problem or any perception of a problem overnight? No. But can we address it with a variety of tools? We will. Eddie Wynn?
Several years and been in on many projects. The first thing I'd like to say is this is all great, but everything is on estimates. Period. That's a fact. We have no idea how close those estimates are going to come because of the economy. We don't have, but this morning I spent about 2 hours on the phone. Some people in Washington say that they don't know that this money is gonna be available from the government next year. They don't know that it's not, but it's not been approved, it's not been appropriated, and we're broke. So I'll assume something else. I talked to 3 investment bankers today, all outside of Amarillo, and all of large concerns, and they each told me that when Amarillo owns the hotel and the ballpark, it changes the status of who's responsible for the bonds. Now, I'm not at all saying that this thing won't work, except we can't get a crowd of people to be nearly anywhere. And if we raise the price of the Civic Center or the other things, several people, including myself, and we usually use it 3 or 4 times a year, we'll have to go elsewhere. I don't know where, but we can't pay another 20% because we're basically a nonprofit, and we just can't do it. And it puts the risk on it. The other thing, on the ball diamond over here, from November until March, you're not going to schedule very much in there because you have no idea whether you're going to be freezing rain or 6 inches of snow in it any of the rest of the time of year. So I've lived here a long time. This is not a guesstimate. I did call Corpus Christi today and talk to a business associate down there that is in the same business I'm in. And he said their deal was not off the dime. It was turning out to be very expensive. That it was not working down there the way it should. I talked to San Antonio and they said they were not doing, they were in problem. The Waco thing, of course I lived in Waco 3 years ago and I called some people here and they said Waco done good for a while and still done pretty good. Said remember we used all of that property that was already owned by Waco. They bought that property or taken it from the individuals that owned it as tornadoes torn up areas several years before. The question is that these figures are all estimates, they're not facts. The other thing is, these investment bankers all told me that when the city of Amarillo owns the ball diamond and the hotel, that does change the effect of the bonds. And he didn't tell me that it's going to be automatically taxpayers. He just said that changes. The owner is responsible for the debt. Period, is what they said. Now, Amarillo has been a great market. Amarillo has been a great market. But have you looked at how many buildings are becoming empty? We quote the sales tax as being up 9%, but our prices are up 18 to 25%. So how far are we really behind, not ahead? And my question is, when the economy, in the economy, and all I've done is read the paper. So if they've misquoted it, I'm using figures that are not right, and I acknowledge that. They stated parking was $10 in the parking building, and that was Sunday. So all these things get bounced around. Amarillo needs some facts, because I've been in on a lot of these projects. I'm a salesman at heart. And I used to have 154 employees, and we done like $55 million in our company in sales. And I belong to a buying group now that we buy over $300 million worth of tires a year right now. So the big figures are not alarming if you actually run a calculator. But
Thank you, Mr. Wayne. Can you wrap up your comments so we've got about a half a dozen more?
Okay, that's fine. Your figures need to be right, and if they're not going to turn out that way, then we got a different problem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Just a couple of very quick responses. All of the estimates were confirmed by the team, and the team included the architectural team and the operators of the hotel and the ballpark. So these numbers have been vetted significantly, not only by the team with Wells Bajelli and the architectural team, but by the city. So these are not just ballpark estimates, excuse the pun, but these are numbers that have been confirmed. Also wanted to point out that the commitments for funding are all there. These are not just potential funding sources, but they have been committed to. And just a clarification on the ownership of the properties, the city would, as you said, own the hotel, the ballpark, and the garage, and essentially own that free and clear. Any debt is against the leasehold of those properties, not against the facility itself. Thank you very much. Okay, Keith Grace.
I'm Keith Grace. I'm really elated that you all, Mr. Esch, and your team have come to Amarillo and have brought this vision to us, simply because I hear a lot of people concerned about cost factors. Having grown up in North Heights, Amarillo, better known as the hood in 21st century America, with a single parent mom, I've never struggled to attend one thing in Amarillo, Texas. Grew up with all the athletic abilities in the world and had to run on a dirt track at Dick Bibbins Stadium, which is now state-of-the-art, all asphalt weather track. And had it not been for people who envisioned that there would be a lot of other little speedies out there who could excel in track, we probably wouldn't have the state-of-the-art athletic facility that we have for our school system. And I am not bothered by the naysayers. I'm proud to be a native Amarilloan and to tell you that I went for maybe 10 years of my life in a commute from Amarillo to Dallas, Texas. I went to Neiman Marcus and from Neiman Marcus to Rosewood Properties, specifically the downtown Hotel Crescent Court, where the rooms were $540 a night all the way to $5,000 per night for the presidential suite, and people paid that. It was in close proximity to the American Airlines Center. It was in close proximity to where there was an outdoor venue for ball. And I like the fact that you're saying it's multi-purpose. Being inclement weather, if that's a concern, I'm not driving in the sleet and snow and 6 degrees below with a canopy top person's place. I'm just not one of those types of people that like that cold weather out there. But my question is, how do we bypass the 10%? I work too with the opera. I work with a lot of arts community, and a 20% increase. If we can take a look at how we could reroute that, that's going to be really, really important to the arts community. It's not about black and it's not about Hispanic, it's about art. And the one thing I know that you will draw to downtown Amarillo is when you've got great art performances taking place. So can we reroute that and take another look at how we can bypass that? And I'll share this much with you. Just sent a group of Girl Scouts from my neighborhood, and here's how it works. Not everybody who can't afford is not allowed to go. The Anatole Hilton underwrote rooms for those girls, but the problem was the parking was $24 per night. And so I'm saying that to say, if you think $5 is a lot of money, rethink that, because I'm willing to pay $5. I have a nice car. I really do. I'm not standing here. I'm not going to claim being poor and from the wrong neighborhood, never had an opportunity, and woe is me. I just think that it's time for us to go past that mindset. One thing that has not been mentioned here tonight is the quality of life for people. If you want to stay poor and not afford your children a quality of life or opportunities, then come talk to my black single parent mother who stood on a bus stop and cleaned houses in Brooklyn to give me the opportunity that I now have today. And I'm grateful for that. And so when people come in here and are worried about the water and worried about all these things that they're worried about, my washer went out at my house. I washed my gym clothes in the kitchen sink. Thank you. If y'all know a good technician, my name tag's gone out. And I'm serious. I'm not sitting here because I need you to applaud me or I need to be facetious. But thank you. I would have never known I could do that. And I want to take as much time as I need to take as everybody else has taken, because it's a free country now and your rights groups over here have spoken, and I'm taking an opportunity to share my gut level feelings. And so yes, the question was 10%, 20%. You missed it. And that's the question. But the comment is, thank you. I hope Amarillo will wake up and smell the roses, because we've got a generation of kids coming that are not black, they're not white, they're future. And they need what we don't have. There's no way we're going to let Amarillo, Texas continue to be just a truck stop and then tell our next generation of kids who board a plane or raise money to go somewhere. Yes, there's Albuquerque and Oklahoma City, and we are the same size as Grand Prairie and Shreveport. I heard that here, but we're almost as large as some of those suburban areas. But thank you for allowing me to take as much time as some of these other people have taken. And I hope that the positive mindsets in this town will work twice as hard now to come to grips with the fact that we cannot let this be just a sandbox, and when the wind blows, it all goes away.
Thank you so much for your comment. Kim, Sylvia, we have about a half dozen more.
I have a couple comments to my question. First, I think I consider myself the next generation that's going to be up and coming, and that's looking to have an Amarillo that I'm proud of. I already am, but have other people come in. I understand we're in a recession and there's a drought. I'm a realtor. I believe me, I know there's a recession, and I'm also a full-time student at AC. And I've learned from the people that I've know and have grown up here in Amarillo, that the only way to get yourself to make sure you have a good future is to take care of it yourself. And I think this is what we're trying to do here. If we run out of water, by God, at least we'll have money coming in that we can buy some more. So, the other thing, the Amarillo Opera, I actually was an opera major in college. I love the arts, but by God, if we could get some good concerts in this town, I would be ecstatic. Because if I want to go see a good concert, I go to Lubbock, I go to Fort Worth, I go to Oklahoma City, I go to Albuquerque, and I spend my money to go stay in those hotels and to go to those venues, and I pay $25 to park, and I'm excited about that because it's cheap. And I'm putting my money somewhere else. So to have the opportunity for people to come to Amarillo and put their money here is, something that we should be ecstatic about and excited for. One other comment. First, Texas Tech was established in 1923, and Amarillo College was the first junior college in the state of Texas, starting in 1929. So we didn't miss out on Texas Tech. And Amarillo College only adds to our area. That's one other comment. And my question is, this EB5 loan that everyone seems to be obsessed with, and my question is, these people are quote-unquote buying their way in the U.S. If we take their money, are they still going to be buying their way in the U.S. and someone else going to take the money? Because that seems like to me, if Amarillo, Texas takes it or not, they're still coming. So we should take the opportunity while we have it to use it, because someone else is just going to do that.
To answer your question, you're absolutely right. It's a program that's there. It's available for these kinds of projects. So either we take it or somebody else does it that's doing a similar kind of project. Kim, Sylvia, I'm sorry, Kim, thank you, you just spoke. Howard Smith. Is Howard still there? You go.
Thank you for this opportunity. I want to form a question. I'll be real brief. But I've heard the word vision several times tonight. And all the time I've been sitting back here, and I've been to a lot of the meetings leading up to this meeting. I think of something that happened in the past, like 50 to 60 years ago, where I remember my father, when I was in college, in high school, drove me out on the US 66, just west of the VA hospital, and asked me to look over at the prairie. It's as brown as it is now out there. And there's a gully, and there's no building, and it says, just imagine a hospital over there. That's vision. That wasn't just him. That was a group of people in this community. I see this as a similar event. It's vision. It's a big step. I compliment the city commission and the mayor presently and the past city commission and mayor for leading up to this point, for hiring these people. They were charged with presenting a plan. They have presented a plan. I'm not saying the plan is perfect. I think it needs to be tweaked. The opera business, the homeless, those things can be tweaked, and there are things we can work on. But I would encourage, if they're still here, the city commission to basically adopt this plan and move forward. My question, I know, I finally got there. Ballpark, and I know it's a multi-purpose center, but I'm confused on the numbers. From what I understand, it may be smaller ballpark, less people can attend than what we have now. And we're growing 1 or 2% a year. Seems like we need to be bigger. That's my question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments and your question. The ballpark is estimated to be, anticipated to be 4,500 fixed seats, a total of 6,000 flexible seating. It has designs the opportunity to add additional seats later on. If you do a concert, you'd be above 10,000 seats because you use more than just that seating area. The reason why you're doing the fixed seats that way and more flexible seating is because it provides different price points. It provides a different experience for different individuals. If you go to any number of the ballparks today, by having the flexible seating, some people have a less expensive ticket, sit on a berm on a blanket with their family and kids. So the capacity of it is approximately 6,000 seats, both fixed and suites and the flexible seating.
And about 10,000 for a concert. Or more, depending on how skinny everybody is. Okay, Betty Britton, I'm gonna mess this up.
No, it's Keith.
Okay.
Word from one Keith, and I applaud the man. He has vision. I have wanted Amarillo and the Texas Panhandle to see a destination and not just a drive-through. And this is a destination point. And I picked 5 cents up today in my mobile home park that I operate, and there it is. We're a destination.
Thank you, Betty. We'll have a collection in the back. Gary Shuck?
First, a comment that I just have to make. I think it would be a terrible mistake to relocate the downtown homeless service agencies. That would just create far more problems than it would solve. And the way to deal with the homeless problem is to, number one, have good law enforcement, and number two, put more community resources into those local downtown agencies for social and rehabilitative services. But I don't expect you to deal with that issue. My question is, are there any circumstances, if these projects fail miserably, if the multiple event center goes belly up, are there any circumstances where sales tax revenue or property tax revenue is going to have to pay for the indebtedness or the operating costs?
No. The ballpark and the hotel and the garage will all be owned by the city, in essence, free and clear. There'll be a lease agreement on those projects. And so all of the debt is against that leasehold interest. So if Armageddon situation and the operators of the hotel or the ballpark fall apart tomorrow, the city can then go hire another operator to come in under a lease agreement.
Use the hotel as an example. $16 million of New Market tax credits, almost $10 million of hard equity that goes into it. New Market tax credits become equity over 7 years is the process, the time when they have to be into. So let's say that the Armageddon situation does happen. That $16 million plus that additional almost $10 million is wiped out. That $42 million loan to ED5, they are the ones that have the opportunity to have leasehold interest. They are subject to the same terms that we would be subject to in leasing the property. The city still has control of the flag. The city still has control over the operator. The city still has the requirements to make sure that the property is maintained. So what happens in deference to the gentleman on the backing of a property who owns it, the leasehold interest is what backs it, not the property taxes. You're not issuing general obligation debt that's backed by property taxes.
Okay, I think Christopher Freeman had a comment to make on the traffic question earlier. He's with TxDOT. We have two more after this.
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I get scared to death in front of a crowd that's big, but I am the Director of Transportation Operations for TxDOT here. And I can shed a little bit more light on the lady's question about traffic, which was a great question. And we, TxDOT, the state of Texas, and the Amarillo MPO recognizes the fact that we've got to get truck traffic off of Buchanan, Pierce, Fillmore, and Taylor Streets, okay? So TxDOT and the MPO have both, just within the last week, committed a significant amount of money to developing the east loop around Amarillo to get truck traffic around the center city through traffic, and it will serve both east-west and north-south truck traffic. I think it's our goal to reduce the amount of traffic coming through downtown, especially big truck traffic. So,
Thank you so much for that clarification. Joe, let's go. Sorry. let's go. I had it right first.
That's okay. My name is Joe Luscombe, and I have a small company here in town. I work in Corpus, San Antonio, Abilene, Fort Worth. I do conventions in all these cities. I cannot begin to tell you how many, well, let me say this, the last 7 weeks I've been working on the road because the conventions have not been here. And I cannot begin to tell you, and I can name specific names of conventions that used to come here that are no longer coming here, although I'm still going to their cities to do their work. One is held in Corpus Christi every year. I've been working with them for 15 years because we do not have a downtown hotel. We do things in Fort Worth, Shreveport, all these different cities. So I'm very much in favor. Now I don't, it's way above my pay grade, what comes first and how to do it and things like that. But I want you to know we are losing a lot of business. And I say this from a very specific, because I know I work with these conventions in these other cities, these conventions that used to be here and are no longer here. And the idea that the hotel would take away from these other hotels, for instance, one convention that is coming back this year is the Baptist Convention. I do about 12 events a year for them. We could do others. But one thing is that the hotel downtown would not take away from the people at the other hotels, like the Ambassador was mentioned, some of these others. Because this is big enough basically for the leadership of many of these conventions. And when the leadership can be this close to the convention center, then they're going to bring all these other people. They're going to be filling up the outside and the other peripheral I-40 corridor hotels. So I really, and by the way, I've been in Amarillo almost 60 years, and so I've seen it big time, little time, through the thick and the thin, things like that. And I'm very proud of Amarillo. We kept our business here instead of going someplace else. And I just hope that what tweaking may need to take place, that we continue on with this project, because there really is a lot of business that we're missing, that I promise you, because they talk to me, when are you going to get that downtown hotel? And they're telling me, we will come back as soon as you do. And so I hope that this project continues on. I know there's some tweaking that needs to be done, but thank you all for doing a great job. I want to stay home some more. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, last one, Stephen Solis.
I'm Steven Solis, and my main question was mainly with logistics and such with the ballpark and the garage. Which one would you see being built first? Because in my opinion, I think it'd be better to build the ballpark, second, and the parking garage first, since, you'd have parking and construction going on when you have events going on at the ballpark would be just a deterrent. And then the second question would be towards features and such that the remodeling of the Civic Center will have, because I'm a big concert and hockey fan, so what features would the new Coliseum have, size-wise features and such?
Thank you, sir. Excellent questions. The parking garage here would have to open before the hotel opened. The construction phasing, you would start with building the hotel until it got all closed in. You would stage on the parking site, and then you would build the parking garage because it takes less time to build structured parking than it does to build the hotel. So it would be completed prior to the opening of the multipurpose event venue. As to the Civic Center, that is a project that the facility assessment efforts are still underway. There has been no determination. I know that Sherman and the folks at the city have been working very hard with HVS and other members of that team to identify the opportunities, and they'll be making those things public in the near term. They have shared a few glimpses of those recommendations, and I would anticipate as that goes forward, you'll be hearing more about it. So there's been no determination as to what happens to the Coliseum, what happens to meeting space, and so on. But that is you can anticipate, as the city has dealt with here, a similar effort to make sure that they share information along that way. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you. Still, thank you. Even if we have one more? Charlotte. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I do have just a few questions. They'll be real quick. Who will pay for the necessary properties that do not belong to the city that you'll have to build on, such as Coca-Cola? And are there any other properties that will need to be acquired? That's one question. Do I need to give them all to you?
Please.
Okay. Who will pay for the site clearing and utility easements and removal? And what are the approximate costs of the utility easements to remove, and how much will be paid by the city? And why isn't renovation upgrades for the Civic Center in consideration at the same time? We've seen expressed want for the ballpark. Where's the need, other than that chicken, the San Diego chicken, he really needed it. We really need our Civic Center. And will the city be the guarantee for any loans made during the proposed ballpark construction redevelopment? And the demographics of our city just won't support this, or do you have a comment on that? And that's all. Oh, I do have one other. That Johnny was wanting to ask those, Johnny Johnson. Jacobs, Kenda Keys, Gideon Toll, Wallace Pajali, and I think the railroad people that were building the overpass on Grand, they're all out-of-town people. Will we be employing our own people or out-of-town people? What happened to buy local, shop local? And I think that's all.
Thank you, ma'am. With respect to the Coca-Cola property, we have been working with Coca-Cola on, they presently have about 120,000 square feet, and we're working with them on the retention of their facilities as they're looking at how they address their needs regionally. It would anticipate to relocate them potentially to the business park by the airport. And we're working with the folks at the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation on that opportunity. With respect to the...
Who's going to pay for Coca-Cola to be moved?
We're working with the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation on the ability to work with Coca-Cola on the relocation. The site cleaning, I put up the budget here, and you see under the infrastructure portion, the city infrastructure cost, this is the entire funding program. So the numbers here relate to the overall program, and there are estimates for streetscape costs, for site demolition, for estimates for utilities and so on and so forth. So those costs are included in the present budget, as I mentioned earlier. And with respect to the city guarantee of loans, the hotel is private, completely privately financed, and there's an assignment of some of the state hotel occupancy tax and potentially a rebate of the city hotel occupancy tax to be able, as one source of revenue, to help retire that private debt, but that is things that are created by the project. With respect to the MPEV and the parking garage, there are a number of sources of revenue that I highlighted earlier. If the city issues revenue bonds, the stream of revenue itself, not the property taxes, is what backs those. Those get into things like the hotel occupancy tax, which is collected citywide off the people that stay in hotels. It is one of the permitted uses under state law to be able to use it for these types of purposes. The demographics, in all candor, that's what we started with, the independent third-party assessments. It doesn't make sense for us to invest funds and go after a project where it's not viable. And so we believe that they demonstrate it is viable. Thank you. So with that...
what about the people? Are you going to hire people from here? Or
thank you.
Everywhere?
Whenever you do a construction project, there's a number of local folks that come into it. We have not selected a contractor. We have to go through a process to select that. Just as we did in the selection of our architectural team, which has lab and architects on board, we endeavor to find members of the local community that can help move this project forward, and we would do so in the contracting as well. As to the ultimate filling of the positions within the hotel and filling within the MPEV, people are looking for qualified folks and would like to make sure that there's local people that are qualified, that they have the opportunity to participate in that selection process. I can't tell you Johnny or Susie or whoever's going to get hired because we don't have a project done yet and they haven't applied. But we will tell you that we'll work through the process to ensure that people do have an opportunity to be considered. So with that, folks, thank you for your kind attention. Melissa has one more question, and I didn't recognize Commissioner Kelly, Commissioner Perez of the City Commission that's here, folks, County Commission and the City Commission, folks that have attended, some of them that attend this evening, recognize them. Thank you all for participating in this process. Folks, it's good, whatever your viewpoint, for us to have a discussion, and we thank you for doing it respectfully.
I just wanted to point out, I know there's a lot of numbers on these slides, they're hard to see. This has been up on our website for about a week now. You go to the front page of downtownamarillo.com and pull this up if you want to look at the numbers and renderings and so forth in more detail. Thank you so much for coming.